Let's go next to let's go to our caller from the 631 area code. Who's calling today from 631?
Hey, David, this is Andrew.
Hey, Andrew, what's up?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I got like a two-part question. First part, is voter turnout in the primaries indicative of turnout in the general?
Well, it depends. Not necessarily, I guess, is the answer. So you could have turnout elevated in the primaries for a reason that doesn't translate to turnout in the general. So, for example, there may be a number of candidates in the primary that are elevating turnout, but then in the general there may not be the same enthusiasm, for example. So no, I don't think that turnout, primary turnout, dictates general election turnout. And this time around with the virus, it's anyone's guess what's going to happen with turnout.
Oh yeah, well, turnout in this case is definitely like up in the air. But
Yeah,
I just meant like in general,
right.
excluding a virus. But yeah, I guess it's pretty complicated. Um, so also, do you have any ideas of like how we can encourage young voter turnout? Because to me, I mean, seeing the way Bernie ran his campaign, being like one of the most popular politicians with young people, breaking records in like campaign contributions, and still couldn't get young people to vote, at least in the primaries. Like who knows what's going to happen in the general. But do you think we need to maybe introduce some sort of legislation to get young people to turn out? Like, what would that even look like?
No, I don't know about legislation. I've talked about, it's important to tell young people that all of your activism is less powerful if you're not also voting. Like you've got to go actually vote. When you don't vote, you are still voting. You're still participating in the system. The idea that you're opting out is a misnomer. And when you don't vote, you are actually still helping someone win. But one interesting tactic I recently heard, and I'm going to workshop this with you right now, Andrew, is the following idea. The idea of you are a shareholder in this country. And when you become 18, your shares vest and they become voting shares. The amazing thing is there are people who are much older than you who have the exact same voting power as you do. Merely by turning 18, your share has vested and it is now a voting share. You're not going to throw that share out, are you? Because much like shares of stock in a company, your share in this country, which lets you vote, has value. When you don't vote, you're essentially throwing it out. Now, in practice, you're doing something worse. You may actually be letting the person you really dislike become president, but that's a different issue. So I'm workshopping this shareholder ideology as maybe a way to get people to understand the importance of voting as soon as they're old enough to.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it.
Mm,
I think a lot of young people might also not think that their vote or their share really matters,
right.
especially if they're in like a blue versus a red state. And I'm wondering if we had something like I personally think the electoral college should still be in place, but maybe if we didn't just if it wasn't like a giver, if one state just didn't give all their electoral votes to one candidate, maybe if it was sort of like split, you know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, another way to get a sort of partial popular vote is you maintain the electoral college, but you do proportional allocation of electoral votes. That's another idea. But
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's
That's what I
certainly,
meant.
which I think is what you're suggesting. These are all good ideas. Yeah. And this is a long time thing. Every election cycle, someone says the polls are understating youth support, and this candidate or that candidate's going to crush it because of young people. And then the young people don't show up, and then we have the same thing happen over and over again.
Yeah, exactly.
All
All
right,
right,
my
well, thanks for
friend.
taking
Thank you
my
so
call,
much for
David.
the call. Yeah, appreciate hearing from you, and very much hope to hear from you again. Give us a call back.